Hi guys, lurking for Mobalytics here. Sorc finally got something to flex about. We got a ton of huge buffs here. A lot of the Diablo partners. Big shout out to Don the Crown for his beautiful spreadsheet and just having really detailed changes about Sorcerer. I'll link his stuff. Sorcerer got some really huge buffs in terms of intelligence, a lot of skill percentages, a lot of changes to legendary nodes in the Paragon, and there's some aspect changes, stuff like that. So we're gonna get straight into it. I'll do the TLDR. These are at base. We're not talking about any uniques or anything like that. Just from the changes to like the skill percentages, the int, and the legendary nodes. A lot of our shock builds got about a 69% buff. Splintering alone, 44% buff. There's more on that. It's a little weird. Frozen Orb, 82%. Ice Shards, 82%. Blizzard, 55%. Fireball, Meteor, about 100% right here. Burning builds got a huge boon, 140, 160%, and then 92%. And that's even before we start talking about Varathiel. We'll see how that ends out. And then these buffs could be even higher for a lot of the spenders if, say, the Lucian helmet that used to grant like 25% times 5. But we think that's going to get nerfed. But then, a lot of our skills are looking a lot stronger. Just like, twice some, twice, 3 times as strong as they were. So Sorc is basically, yeah, it's like twice as strong as it was in the past. I'll go over the changes. So intelligence, it now scales for every 8 intelligence, it goes up 1% instead of every 10 intelligence. It basically equates to about a 16.7% increase in all damage scaling through intelligence. So that's really nice. All the mastery and core skills got a 15 to 20% increase. Frigid Fate went from 30 to 60%, and it's still only going to require 300 cold damage because now it scales by 20% of your cold damage bonus. So the big theme here is that they increased all the amounts, but they didn't change or they made it easier to get the cap. It's not like you need 600% cold damage now. So everything's chill. It's still going to be easy to build. It's going to be easy to hit. All right, so Icefall went from 18 to 25%, and now it's going to be doubled when they're frozen, so that'll be 50% when they're frozen. Searing Heat went from 30 to 60%. Burning Instinct from 40 to 80%, and with Burning Instinct, you're only going to need 1600 int now, I think. So no more, needing to scrap for crit damage to hit it. Elemental Summoner, back up from 30 to 60%, and that's similar to what we saw before all the cap nerfs. Typical build saw 60 to 67%, something like that. And Combustion, it got a series of buffs, went from 20% to 40%, and now it's 60%. So that's huge. And I won't go over the math too much, but there's a lot of fractional percentages of the increases because some are like some of the skills like Hydra, half of its damage is from direct, half is burning. Certain builds take certain legendary nodes, etc., etc. I digress, but that's sort of how I arrived at my numbers. So I'm pretty happy about these. And then one thing I will talk about was Axial Conduit. It got 2 bug fixes. One, we think the Lucian bug, where Makuna was dealing 143 quadrillion damage. I think that's gone as it should be. And then apparently Axial Conduit wasn't doing as much damage as it was supposed to be doing. It probably wasn't scaling properly, something like that. So I'd say it's safe to say you could double this. Maybe Chain Lightning's 137% better. Who knows? Lamb Esen is twice as strong as it was in the past. So if you are running Lamb Esen, it's now 137% stronger than it was. Winterglass got some huge crazy buffs. It's now 80% stronger than it was. So you're looking around 150% total buff with Frozen Orb. Um, uh, Blizzard Blue Rose got a huge buff. I think it's 40% stronger than a legendary ring now. So I'm guesstimating around 75% total Blizzard buff. And there's still some stuff open with Fireball. Is Illuminators or Staff of Endless Rage going to get a buff? So that could take this 107% number up even higher. Same thing with Starfall. We don't know the full rework. We don't know the whole Talrasha, if Talrasha is going to get a crazy rework or something like that. So let's move into some of our passives. So let's look at 6 ranks of warmth. In the past, it was 3% per burning enemy around you that you healed. Now it's going to be 6% per enemy around you that you heal each second, and it was 12% with the boss with 6 ranks. That's 3 in the skill tree, 3 from a temper. Now it's going to be 24%. So if you start to take some warmth ranks, you can start to get some really crazy healing per second on the bosses. So if you can spec yourself up to survive the one shots, you can heal up relatively quickly. So Might be straight back into a Firebolt meta. Not that we really ever left, but I figured out a way to do it without it on a lot of builds. All right, so align the elements, increase from 40 to 60%. That's the elite DR that you can get that stacks up. That's super nice. And mana shield went from 8 to 10%. So at 3 ranks, it's going from 24 to 30% DR. That's super nice. Ice armor got some changes. It used to be, after the nerfs, and then it became 40% of your life. Now the TLDR is you need 1 rank in ice armor plus the protection passive and a single barrier gen roll. And when you pop ice armor, you'll have a max life barrier because you can't go over your max life. Or if you're running Shaco, you just need the 5 ranks in the ice armor, 1 base, 4 plus Shaco, 4 from Shaco, plus the 30% protection passive. Those do stack additively. And then you're right at a max life barrier just off the gate, just from pressing ice armor. And then Snowveiled aspect got a change. That was where ice armor makes you unstoppable, and it granted you 30% armor, which became irrelevant after the armor changes. So now it gives you 25% DR for 5 seconds. So I think a lot of builds are going to run Snowveiled plus concentration, 25 DR from the ice armor, and then 20 or 25 DR. I think it's 25 from casting a conjuration skill. So that's just like 50%. 45% all DR. You do some maths. So Endless Rage went from 50 lightning damage to 170. It dropped the crit strike damage and gained 360 intelligence. It's now got 75% chance for charge bolts to cast twice. That alone is twice damage. And it's got 45% resource cost reduction, and then still 4 to 6 ranks to charge bolts, and you can get up to 16 ranks if you fully masterwork and hit all your masterworks. And the unique effect went from 60% to 80% chance to be attracted to enemies and last 300% longer. I think Lamb Esen is going to be viable if you do want to run pure CB. I think it's going to be on somewhat equal footing with Wand Focus, barring the loss of the cooldown roll and the crit chance. But I think it's going to be really strong and actually somewhat viable, not a complete troll pick. I'm excited for it. Next, we're going to move on to Blue Rose. Blue Rose is looking insane. So Blue Rose, it's getting 9 to 11% crit chance. Blizzard used to only need to hit 50% crit chance. Then you factor in Stalagmite Glyph, giving you 20%, and the Asus Heirloom Boots, giving you 30, taking you all the way up to 100. So now you're going to need even less crit damage. Crit chance if you weren't already taking it on a ring. So that's just super nice that it got it. It's now going to have 170% cold damage, 350% ice spike damage. You can run this in conjunction with Starless because Starless handles your mana cost. Now that's losing the mana cost roll. But the biggest thing here is, and these aren't even GA or Masterwork hit. It's a lot of additive. Like these two alone, typical Sorc builds only get 1500, 1200, 1500 additive. These two alone, 500%. Then we start talking about GA, stuff like that. Like this ring alone can give you like 30, 50% damage. Like it's crazy. And then we look at the ice spike, chance for ice spikes to explode twice. That alone, the 35% chance on a Blizzard build, that's a 1.35x damage aspect. And the unique effect got buffed, so it's going from about 2800. This might be with a staff equipped, but it's going all the way up to 4400, which is probably Wand Focus values. So it got it's 50% stronger now, so that's very nice. Now let's cover the Winterglass changes, which are huge. So basically, it lost cooldown and it lost vulnerable damage. But what it gained was 75% non-fizz versus the 37 that we have here. Instead of, it used to cap at 5 ranks to Conjure Mastery, it used to get stuck in limbo if you only got two Masterwork hits. Now that's not the case because it starts at 4 ranks Conjure Mastery. So GA, 3 Masterwork hits, you can get 10 ranks to Conjure Mastery. This alone is a 30% damage increase. Averaged across typical 10 to 15 conjurations, 30% damage increase. And now it's going to reduce your Ice Blade and Lightning Spear cooldowns when the Frozen Orb explodes. Is this going to work with the Frozen Orb at double pop aspect? We don't know. And it gets chance for Frozen Orb to cast twice, which is amazing because we can start to approach 100% chance to get 2 Frozen Orb casts whenever you cast, combined with Wand Focus tempers. And the unique effect got buffed from 50 to 65% chance to cast the Conjuration, which is going to help get a lot more spears. And it went from 70 to 90% chance for your Conjurations to shit out a Frozen Orb. So overall, I give this thing about an 80% buff. It's pretty large. Let's move into the others. Frostburn got reworked. They look less terrible now. I'm not sure if I'm going to take them on any builds, mainly because they don't have crit chance anymore, or ranks to core, but they're looking a lot better. So early, mid game, early end game, if you don't have any better gloves, you get a nice pair of Frostburns. Slap them on, they'll be fine. It's got lucky hit chance, attack speed. It's got a pretty large value of fire and cold damage, 182%. And then lucky hit chance to deal 4,000 or 4,000, yeah, 4,000 fire, 4,000 cold damage, and 60% chance to freeze. Overall, they give them about a B, but they're looking a lot better than they were in the past, considering they were just a lucky hit chance to freeze temper with crit chance and attack speed. Flicker steps got buffed. Instead of 1.5 second attacks reduce evade, now it's 2.5. They're going to grab some move speed after you evade. And they give you 300% ultimate damage, which doesn't really do much for us unless maybe you're running these on like an Inferno build. But because that doesn't, the 300% ultimate damage doesn't affect our unstable currents damage because that's just attack speed and lightning procs. But if you don't have any good boots, but flicker steps are sort of out of the meta for Sorcerer, so this change doesn't really affect us that much, but it's nice. All right, Fist of Fate actually look pretty good now. They got attack speed, crit chance, a really high lucky hit chance roll, a really high chance to apply a random CC effect. These are going to be staggered machines, and they're about a 50% damage boost when you average out the damage, so that's really nice. And last but not least, Shatter got buffed, but it also got gutted, which I'm so happy about because I hate Shatter. I don't like being forced into it, and I think it's bad gameplay, forcing to fish for a boss. But the damage got increased from 30 to 45%, but it no longer receives damage from itself. And when I say that, I mean, say you had 8 enemies and you killed the first one, the shatter damage would cascade into each enemy. Say it killed the second one, then it's got a new higher damage. That explodes for that. Hits the third enemy, new higher damage. So that's why Shatter was so OP. It was because it just cascaded into itself and it was like almost, it was like exponential. So yeah, big shout out. I'll link. I do want to go over the splintering energy changes. I'll link down. I'll link the sheet. I'll link down the crown sheet into here because he's got like the full detail and everything like that. But splintering energy, it got reworked in the PTR and it became. Let me just pull it up real quick. Bear with me. So here's what splintering became. Critical hits with lightning spear causes lightning damage to arc, dealing yada 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 damage and up to 5 on their enemies. This damage was increased by your critical strike damage bonus. It was 1% damage per 1% crit strike damage. So you could stack a bunch of crit strike damage and you were hitting from like 15, 20 million per spear. And it was insane for mobbing because it chained to 5 other enemies. But what it used to be was it used to increase your lightning damage when you cast lightning spear for like 3 seconds. So I think there was a bit of a miscommunication, or maybe they're rolling back the splintering change because they thought it was too strong, or they just didn't like it. But now it's apparently say they do roll it back. Now it's 40% damage for 3 seconds when you cast lightning spear, which could end up being good if you're casting lightning spear a ton. But I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Lightning Rod got a little change. 25% chance to deal 80% increased damage. Doubled against bosses or CC'd enemies. So it works out. Yeah, so that looks okay. But so Splintering's up in the air. Varathiel looks really good. The basic unique sword that granted 300% damage. We'll see if that survives. Lucian Helmet looked really good. That was 25% damage, just stacked 5 times. But apparently that's going to get nerfed, so maybe it'll go down to 10%. It might still be okay. But that's all I got for now. But, Sorc's looking strong, man. Like, we're looking really good. And the biggest thing was that Barbs got nerfed. So I'm very happy because I hate Barbs. All right. I'll catch you guys. I'm going on vacation 4 or 5 days. Won't be back till August. Catch everyone.